Okay, this is our 10th presentations of ideas for the AIM program. If I stumble my words, I'll do it better. Let's see, we're going to talk, I'm getting glasses. AIM program, obviously we have several million under management. We're going to have Q&A presentations for about 7 to 10 minutes, Q&A for another 5 minutes, and we'll carry from there. And online we have David Krause, who will be I'm sure be active in his questions, in addition to Dr. Royal and myself, and up to you to help clarify the story. So we're starting with, sorry about this. Limelight Networks with Derek Gross and Alex Moragas and Nick Rohr. So, waiters.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Derek Gross, and I'm a senior in the AIM program, covering the domestic IT sector. Assisting me in my presentation today are Nick and Alex, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Nick Rohr. I'm a junior in the AIM program covering domestic tech.
Hi, I'm Alex Miletus. I'm a junior in the AIM program covering international IT.
Thanks, Nick and Alex. All right, let's get into it. I don't have a universal screening process, but what I do look for are companies that I believe are in industries that have favorable tailwinds and are positioned for growth. Then I look for companies within that space that I feel can outperform their competitors, and that's what I believe we have here today in Limelight. During my screening process, I actually found Fastly, which I've listed as one of their top competitors first. I loved the industry, but I didn't necessarily love the company, and that led me to Limelight. Essentially, Limelight operates as a private network of servers and other equipment that can deliver content, both digital and video, on behalf of companies. This differs from traditional broadcast companies in that this is done completely over the internet, or as we describe it in our write-up as OTT, standing for over the top. The private network allows companies to bypass the congested public internet to more efficiently deliver content to end consumers, whether that be on a laptop, tablet, phone, smart TV, or other device. Moving on to my recommendation, Limelight again is a content delivery network in a secular industry that we believe is positioned better than its peers and will capture additional market share, which stands today at about 2.5%. Industry-wide drivers include the growth of over-the-top video, which all of you know as traditional streaming services. Services such as Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime currently dominate the space, and the entrance of new competition in Apple, Disney, and others should continue to drive demand for streaming, especially outside the U.S. where over-the-top streaming is not as prevalent. Limelight, again, is poised to capture a greater share of overall content delivery, which is derived from internet traffic, which even in maturity is still growing very fast. Internet traffic is growing at a rate of 26% annually, while live video streaming via the internet is growing at 73% annually. As the premier content delivery network focused on video delivery, Limelight is positioned to outperform its peers and take a larger portion of content delivery allocated to multiple CDNs. To execute on its low-latency, high-quality strategy, the company has made strategic advances in edge computing as well as real-time streaming, both of which will be touched on in further detail shortly. Advances in edge computing, which we believe will rival cloud computing as the optimal way to route data, as well as the introduction of real-time streaming in the coming years, have positioned the company to add capacity and stream data faster and cheaper than rivals. Lastly, while this company has not generated positive earnings over its life as a public company, we believe that increases in top-line revenues will fall down to the bottom line as a relatively higher portion of operating expenses are fixed. And with that, I'll hand it off to Alex to talk about edge computing.
Thanks, Derek. As our first driver, we discussed edge computing as a new alternative to cloud computing that processes data at the destination rather than a central data server. This architecture introduces a new type of low-latency computing that would better fit emerging applications that require large amounts of data trafficking and real-time processing. Limelight has developed an ongoing partnership with Ericsson, accessing their unified delivery network to gain additional points of presence, extending their client base. The emergence of edge computing will be essential in the continued growth of augmented reality, virtual reality, and Internet of Things technology, providing Limelight with strong growth opportunities for the future. And now to Nick for our second round.
As we're all aware, the streaming wars are continuing to heat up. Apple launched its TV Plus platform last Friday, Disney Plus is launching on next Tuesday, and NBC's Peacock and HBO Max are launching within the next 6 months. As these content owners are looking to bring their content to the market, Demand for this content delivery will continue to increase. In the third quarter of 2019, Limelight set a personal traffic record, up 20% from quarter two. As more of these streaming video on-demand services are launched and Limelight continues to expand its delivery network, this broad-based momentum is expected to continue.
Thanks, Alex and Nick. Our last driver is real-time streaming, which I'm very excited about. So in late 2018, Limelight introduced real-time streaming, which is the industry's first and only sub-second live video streaming solution. This is a big deal as the typical delay between broadcast and live stream is upwards of 30 seconds. So just to put that in perspective, say that you're watching the Packers game on Sunday and you're getting notifications on your phone of things that are happening in the game before they're happening on your stream. That's because the stream is delayed about 20 to 30 seconds from the actual broadcast, which the broadcast itself is delayed a couple of seconds from the actual game. Again, this is important because 58% of consumers say they're more likely to watch live television, especially sports, through over-the-top streaming services if it is not delayed from the stream. Real-time streaming can provide delays in less than a single second, and is already gaining considerable interest from current customers. We'll now briefly touch on our risks. So the first one is high revenue concentration. Our revenue is highly concentrated among several big name players. Amazon alone accounts for 30% of revenue, all of which is derived from Prime Video. So a loss of Amazon or a combination of other top customers would be a big blow to revenue.
For the second risk, Limelight and its largest competitor, Akamai Technologies, have been in continuous legal suits over the past decade. During this time, both companies have been required to pay settlement fees, and there's an increased risk of considerable legal costs if lawsuits continue with Akamai.
Finally, some of the largest OTTs may begin to explore developing their own in-house content delivery networks. For example, if Amazon were to develop its own delivery network, this would reduce its need for Limelight services. Due to the capital-intensive nature of the industry and developing a network, this is not feasible for most OTTs. However, if several OTTs develop in-house CDNs, Limelight would be exposed to the risk of losing contracts with significant clients.
All right. The last thing that we'll touch on before moving on to our valuation is management, which again, we're very excited about. So Bob Lento is the CEO, a position he's held for 6 years. Before joining Limelight, he was a C-suite executive at several other data analytics companies. Recently brought on board was the VP of sales. His name is Tom Marsh. He recently was a sales executive at Workday, where he assisted in growing their sales by over 900% during his time there. Lastly, the company recently named 2 executives to the board of directors who are executives at CBS and NBC, which we believe their valuable perspective in navigating how cable companies are adapting to changes in OTT viewership will help leverage the company. All right, valuation. So I constructed a 5-year DCF using a terminal growth rate of 2% and a WACC of 8.3% to come up with an intrinsic value of $5.39. A price to sales multiple evaluation was calculated using a 2020 estimate sales per share figure of $1.94, a blended average peer multiple of 3.5 times to come up with an intrinsic value of $6.82. Finally, EBITDA was calculated using a 2020 estimate of EBITDA of $29.9 million, a blended average peer multiple of 17.3 times to reach an intrinsic value of $4.90. But weighing the 3 models, 40, 30, 30, a price target of $5.58 was reached, resulting in a potential 31.9% upside, and our company does not pay a dividend.
Now we'd like to open it up to questions.
Very good. First question. Gino.
How's it going? So touching on your first risk, you guys have that like customer concentration, and then like earlier we talked about how like Netflix used to be a customer, but who does Netflix and Hulu use?
So Netflix used to use Limelight. They've went ahead and developed their own CDN. Hulu still uses Limelight.
Okay, so then touching on that, like, do you know how much Netflix invested to make their own CDN, and like Amazon being a little bigger, like that's
Yeah.
big.
So not exactly, but it would be a significant amount. Essentially, over the life of this company, Limelight, they've started building this infrastructure in 2001, and they're just on the cusp now of generating earnings. So it would be a pretty big capital investment for any company.
Thank you.
I think Shay with Dr. Kraus.
Question from Dr. Kraus. He says, your company has been one of the favorite stocks held by hedge funds. However, several have sold out of their positions recently. Are you aware of this, and does this concern you that they know something you don't?
Yeah. So to answer that, the company essentially had a great Q3, and that caused the stock price to rise over 40%. We feel confident that this is just the beginning of a continuance of several outstanding quarters for the company. They just had record traffic for the last 2 quarters in what has historically been slow season for content providers. So I think that's why they would perhaps be exiting their position. But again, we feel comfortable that the company can grow much further.
Great, next question. Gene?
Yeah, sorry. Another question for the Akamai Technologies. It seems like they have like a lower PE and just like a cheaper stock right now. What do you think Limelight does to differentiate themselves from Akamai, and then why wouldn't we just invest in that?
Yeah, so Akamai is a much bigger company than Limelight. What really I'm looking for in a comparison is if they are a video provider, which they are, but that's only about like 20% of their revenue. So they're like less comparable on a relative basis. That makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Dr. Kraus. Dr. Wall.
I'm curious, do you know what framework they use for their data processing on their streaming end of things? Right? Do you know if it's aligned with like Storm, Spark, Flink, or something else?
I am not certain.
I don't know if your mentees do. Because I see 10 competitors in this subsecond space, depending on which framework you go down. So I understand and appreciate they spend a lot of money developing this, but I got 10 companies out there that are private I can go gobble up if I'm Apple or Disney. Why wouldn't I do that as opposed to grab you guys? If I want to, in other words, I guess Amazon's your main player, right?
Yeah.
What's to stop them from going and buying one of these private startups that are competing in your space that actually have second streaming also, and that are much cheaper?
So no other competitors have sub-second streaming.
There are 10 of them that do. Just found them, but they use different tech than we do.
Okay. So that's a good question. Nothing is stopping them from doing that. It would be a lot more expensive than to simply use Limelight to route their services.
And do you know what their cost structure looks like to Amazon by chance? Like how much per megabyte or anything?
So no, they don't disclose that. It is per bit of data though.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Another question?
One more from Dr. Kraus. He says your company needs Apple TV Plus to be a hit, but recently some of the new Apple series have been getting banned by the critics. How important is it for your company that Apple TV Plus is a success?
So, Nick, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. So Limelight has a lot of contracts with many different OTTs. So I wouldn't say that they're necessarily 100% reliant on Apple TV Plus. However, just due to the amount of capacity that Limelight has with Apple TV, of course, like if they do well, then Limelight will definitely see positive results as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so they have other customers besides Apple, obviously. So if Apple TV launches and they start to draw away customers from other services that we have, we still have the same base of the number of capacity and data that's being transferred. It's just coming from a different source and a different company. It may have different cost structures. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if Apple were to have a bad perception.
I have one last question. They haven't been profitable ever since they came public, correct? I assume they've been cash outflow for a great many of those years, and yet they have no debt. How did they finance their losses?
That's a good question. They used to have debt. They paid it all off in 2017, if I'm correct on that.
Okay. All right. One quick question left? No? Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have Patrick Thiel with Axon. Hey. Go ahead. Gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Patrick Thiel. I'm a senior in the program. I cover international industrials, but today I'll be pitching a domestic industrials company with my two mentors who I'll let introduce themselves.
My name's Jimmy O'Brien. I'm a junior in the AIM program, and I cover domestic industrials.
I'm Solomon Dorsey. I cover domestic industrials junior in the bank program.
Before we get started, I want to clarify a few things. My WAC says 9.5 in the box. It's not. It's 8. And as of Wednesday, when I finalized my write-up, the stock was trading at 54 or 52.24, and this morning it is trading at 64.80 due to a recent earnings beat. To get started, Axon Enterprise designs, manufactures, and sells conducted electrical weapons, otherwise known as CEWs, and security systems. The company operates under 2 business segments: TASER weapons, consisting of hardware-based solutions, TASER and body cameras, which were attributable to 60% of revenue, and software and sensors attributable to 40% of revenue, and consisting of Axon software subscriptions, mobile applications, and bundled offerings. Revenue is generated in the US 80%, the UK 8%, Canada, and Australia. The Netherlands is responsible for 3%. Axon was incorporated in 1993 and is headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona. Moving on to my recommendation. Axon Enterprise completed its IPO in 2001 and has since developed into a global leader in connected public safety technologies. In past years, the TASER branded CEW segment has comprised the majority of the business, attributable to 60% of the revenue in 2018, compared to 68% in 17 and 82% in 2016. Recently, Axon has made significant investments, including several acquisitions and product redesigns, to expand its software and sensor segment. Body camera solutions are management's main priority, or top priority in the near term, with a focus on transitioning from the old hardware model to a subscription and recurring revenue model. Through this, they have a 5-year program, a 60-month financing period in which companies and clients pay for their services. In May of 2018, Axon closed the strategic acquisition of Vivu, a subsidiary of their largest competitor at the time, Safariland. The deal supplemented Axon's customer base by adding 5 of the largest agencies in the United States. And they added New York City, Miami-Dade, Oakland, Phoenix, and Aurora. Per the deal, Axon signed a 10-year contract with Safariland to become their sole holster supplier for the TASER products. And in return, Safariland agreed to sign a non-compete clause against TASER products. This should benefit both parties and relieve pricing pressure in the CEW segment for Axon. Post-closing, the body camera solution segment of Axon served 47 of the 69 major agencies, as well as a growing overseas presence. The next largest competitor is Motorola, who serves only 7 of the major U.S. agencies. Management estimates an addressable market of $8.4 billion with potential to triple in the coming 3 to 5 years. This is attributable to the introduction and acceptance of record management solutions, AI services, and dispatch software. Due to high demand for the innovative new line of products, transition from hardware to subscription model, a portfolio of 100 plus patents, and a large untapped market, it is recommended that Axon Enterprises be added to the AIM Small Cap Equity Fund with a price target of $73, representing since Wednesday, or as of Wednesday, 39% upside. Moving on to my investment thesis. Load the boat for the sake of a moat. Axon's relationship network comprises or encompasses 94% of U.S. police agencies, all of which procure TASER products. Management estimates that 70% of the 660,000 U.S. patrol officers are currently carrying a TASER device. That insinuates that 460,000 units are in place in the U.S. today. The company conservatively expects to reach 90% of the domestic total addressable market by 2023, which would provide $475 million of incremental revenue during the 4-year horizon. Additionally, there are 140,000 TASER devices in place internationally, and management foresees vast opportunity given the negative connotation associated with firearms elsewhere in the world. Axon's TASER products complement the business with 70% gross margins. Moving on to my second driver, record software and sensor bookings. Last quarter showed strong demand for Axon's bundled packages. The officer safety plan revenue was driven by greater than expected customer reception, pulling in a record $142 million in quarter two, up 60% year over year, with 86% sequential growth. The bundle sells for $149 to $199 per month, depending on the bundle. The bundle includes a TASER 7 platform, digital evidence management, Axon Records, and the highly anticipated Axon Body 3, which began shipping in late September. The Body 3 is an unmatched in the industry, differentiating itself by achieving wireless carrier certifications from both Verizon and AT&T. Enhanced by AI and LTE connection, the Body 3 can automate many of the redundant and non-revenue producing tasks, relieving officers of doing so. And I will move on to my third driver, but Saul will be presenting it.
So the third driver, time is money. Over $2.5 billion in settlements are paid annually due to police misconducts. And on top of this, there are economic inefficiencies within the law enforcement agencies. Currently, it's $33,000 per year per 10 officers to store and collect data from these body cameras. And it's another $32,000 annually per 10 officers to retrieve said data. So per 10 officers, it's $65,000 annually, which is around 10% of their annual salary. The Axon product systems offer $24,000 to solve these inefficiencies, which would be $41,000 of annual savings per 10 officers. I'm now going to move it on to Pat, and he's going to discuss the valuation section.
Actually, in essence of time, we'll skip the valuation, but you guys can ask afterwards. Jimmy will present the risks.
So the first risk we have is budget constraints. Since most of our customers are government agencies, they operate under budget constraints, having limited control over the amount of capital allocated to their needs. As a result, even agencies that are with high demand for Axon products may be unable to purchase them. There's a lack of uniform tech standards. The law enforcement industry significantly lacks uniform tech standards and operating procedures. This leads to disparities in workflow and interoperability, but as tech becomes more broadly accepted, adoption standardizations will follow. Slow adoption rates. So despite the fact that Axon has experienced faster adoption rates than expected of its TASER CEWs, body cams, and fleet cams, a slowdown in adoption would adversely affect the company's ability to meet goals and drive shareholder value. Now I'm going to touch on management. Axon is led by the founder and CEO, Patrick Smith. Mr. Smith founded Axon in 1993 and has played an integral role in every aspect of the company's success. He obtained a bachelor's degree from Harvard with a major in neuroscience, and then continued on to the University of Chicago to get his MBA at Booth. Jawad Ahsan joins Axon as the CFO in 2017. He renewed Axon's focus on strategical financial planning and long-term forecasting. Prior to assignment at Axon, he was a CFO at GE and MarketTrack. And then uniquely, the company offers a very incentivized compensation plan, which helps them attract top-end talent in a competitive tech industry.
And with that, we'd like to open up for questions.
Gino, you got the first question.
So touching on your first driver, you said the company conservatively expects to reach 90% of the total addressable market by 2023. How do they plan on doing that? And then how did you calculate the additional $475 million in incremental revenue?
As the adoption of, the accountability, that's really what their solution solves. As soon as a TASER device of theirs is pulled from a holster, it signals the body cameras of officers and officers around it to turn on. That automatically then live streams to their evidence.com, where it can be viewed by prosecutors or other law enforcement agencies. So as as that, or the need for that becomes more demanded, I think more, or management thinks more companies will resort to their solution, and they think they can dominate and obtain at least 90%. As far as the 475 million and where that came from, I quantified it by taking the 20%, which would equate to 132,000 remaining officers, given that there's 660,000 currently. $24,000 per year per 10 officers is what the OSP plus, which I assume the bundle they would use to capture the remaining 20%. So 132 remaining officers at $24,000 per 10. 13.2 times 24,000 equates to 317 million from the OAS bundles themselves. Along with that, there's 93 million in initial hardware purchases. So the body camera within their subscriptions, they actually have to purchase the body camera for $699 a piece. That equates to 93 million. And then there's 65 to 70 million in warranties baked into that number as well.
Okay, so then how much of the market do they have now if you haven't talked about that before?
How much of the
Yeah, so you say they're going to get to 90 by 2023. How much are they at now?
70?
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's acknowledge that, Patrick, your mom's online. I wonder if she has an opinion about her question about your mustache.
I don't think she can see it. It's pretty fuzzy. It's not dark enough.
Another question. Jake.
Yeah, you have a question from Dr. Kraus. He said, did you listen to yesterday's earnings call? And if you did, what was your main takeaways and any concern about a possible buildup in backlog?
So we did listen to their earnings call, and we were very pleased with it, as well as management. The adoption, again, in Q3 was much faster than anticipated, which is very good for our numbers. It makes our numbers seem pretty conservative. And as far as their backlog, it shouldn't grow as fast as revenue because of the fact that last quarter they experienced some supply issues that limited them from getting out all of their orders.
Another question.
Have you had a chance to look at executive compensation at all? I was listening to a podcast today, and they are a little bit concerned with that, given that the CEO had about $246 million with the stock options last year. Have you guys factored that in at all about possible like share dilution or anything?
Yeah, so the compensation plan is built out based on performance measures. So he gains his compensation based on market cap. So as they grow the market, then he is paid out as 1% of every $1 billion that they raise. So it's set at different tranches. We didn't see that as an issue. We actually thought of it as more of a driver of their commitment to the business, and because he's going to be pushing to grow the business.
And to add on to that, over a third of employees partake in this new compensation plan where they can bet on the company's success. And employees making $100,000 a year or greater are eligible of betting almost 10% of their annual salary that they hit these performance metrics. And when they hit these performance metrics, they get obviously multiplied payouts. There was a study done that for 9 years, the end of the compensation plan that ended in 2024. So if an employee that makes $100,000 a year for 9 years puts in $10,000 a year, that equates to $90,000 for the 9 years. Axon will triple it to $270,000, and the payout on that $270,000 would be equivalent to $1.5 million. And that's just for your middle management employee. So we actually viewed that as kind of a driver of the company, to be honest with you.
Dr. Wall.
Things I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been back to this stock. Has the CEO been here for a long time?
Patrick Swift? Yeah, he's been there. He actually founded it in his garage.
Right. So you guys may or may not be aware, but I'm acutely aware. This is probably the greatest short squeeze of all time. It's very aggressive in his accounting and his thing. Is this short interest level high or low relative to the norm?
Relative to the norm, it's low. And this morning they experienced quite the squeeze, I think.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it depends on the thing, right? But my concern, honestly, is that there's super aggressive accounting. They've done this 3 times in their past. Why, if the same CEO is in charge, who's run through these massive spikes and then we're talking 900% runs with collapses. Why should we expect him to be a better corporate citizen the fourth time?
I would not put that accountability on him. I would actually push towards, that's the reason they hired Jawad Hassan in 2017 to kind of rebrand their
Yeah, they
goals
changed their
and
name
financial
because they have such a terrible name, right?
No, they changed their name. They used to only offer taser devices, but now they're branching out and
Let
pushing.
me put it, for the old school investors, they had a terrible name.
Taser.
But, yeah, but in terms of the stock, the company might be a great company. But that's what I want to know. Why am I going to, the fourth time, believe they're good? So I guess I'm questioning their corporate citizenship, and you are answering it well. Why should I believe the fourth time that they're finally going to be a responsible corporate citizen?
I think we should give it a fourth try with Jawad and see how it plays out.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for Dr. Krause's last two questions.
So we have a question from Dr. Krause. It says tasers have become an essential tool for police, but are they effective? A recent investigation said that officers in some big cities rated tasers as unreliable up to 40% of the time. Is that a big risk for Axon?
It is a big risk, of course, but they actually just came out with their Taser 7 Plus. It's twice as accurate, shoots twice as far, and is penetrable of close. And the incapacitation levels is grown by 60% and the accuracy by 80%. So they're combating that connotation of tasers in the public, and I think they're doing a well job. The adoption of the Taser 7 has also been greater than expected, so I think the police officers using the products are happy as well.
And then
Another reason not to argue with policemen.
you have one more question from viewer James Hannick. He says, what's your justification for using a 7 times price of sales when you're projecting sales to grow sub 20%?
I do not have justification, but I can get it for James and get back to him.
And to be clear, you still want us to buy it now?
Right. To hint on that, it did run up to $73 today, and my price target is $73.42. It opened 30% higher than yesterday's close due to the solid earnings report. So at this level, I wouldn't consider buying it, but I do want to keep it in the pipeline and watch for future pullback.
I have to ask one more question. Did you do any work on the short stories outside of accounting? Because I think that ShotSpotter also collapsed. They have the same end market. Police, the stock has gone from 60 to, I think,
It's under $1.
ShotSpotters?
Yeah.
And so now you have the same situation. I mean, was there a fundamental issue with ShotSpotter in terms of who they're buying from, what revenue they're getting from? If so, why wouldn't somebody have the same issue?
So I'm not familiar with ShotSpotter's end customer per se. I was under the impression that Motorola and Axon fought for the same space. So I don't know the exact relevance to ShotSpotter's experience.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right, last presentation is Nick Arco on RealPage.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead, very good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. My name is Nick Arco. I'm a senior in the program. I cover domestic technology. I had two mentees assisting me with this pitch. One is at an interview right now, but she covered one of the risks and did the management. So any questions surrounding those, we'll try to cover, but we might have to defer you. This is Sean. He'll help me out as well. Let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Spaldia, and I'm a junior in the program covering domestic IT.
So I'll have him introduce the company, and then I'll do the recommendation, the thesis, and the valuation, and then we'll have him wrap it up with risks and management. A few questions.
Start with the introduction. RealPage Inc., ticker RP, is a leading global provider of software and data analytics solutions to the real estate industry. RP's platform enables the rental real estate industry to manage property operations, including marketing, pricing, screening, leasing, and accounting. RP operates in 4 segments: resident services, property management, leasing and marketing, and asset optimization. Additionally, 100% of annual revenue comes from the United States. RP was founded in 1998 and is headquartered in Carrollton, Texas. I'd like to pass off the recommendation to Nicholas.
So, all right. RealPage completed their IPO in 2010. Since then, they've grown revenues at a CAGR of 21%, with 870 million in fiscal 18 revenues, makes RealPage one of the largest publicly traded real estate software companies in the market. Today, they have about a 7% market share of the $13 billion rental housing industry, and they maintain a steady pipeline of acquisition targets. They have a diverse product suite that serves to increase revenues, reduce operating costs, integrate third-party products, and provide significant visibility into property management activities for customers using data analytics. Most notably, they recently rolled out a market analytics product that gives users access to real-time lease transaction data from over 13 million units. And they feel that users on this platform have 100% portfolio research visibility compared to 5% if they're not using a product like this. And there's also no other product offering in the market that offers these services. With such a large number of products, they realize that there's a real necessity for a platform that will allow users to share data across all applications. So in 2018, they started a Unity Platform initiative that gives customers the ability to implement products more efficiently and access all their products from a single sign-on. This has gained significant traction, and it'll help RealPage to understand implementation timelines, and then also gives customers the ability to implement solutions on their own, which will reduce operating expenses for RealPage, as well as all the additional benefits from being on this platform for customers. So at the end of 2018, RealPage had over 12,000 customers who managed 16.2 million rental real estate units. Like most software companies, they use a land and expand strategy in which they attempt to grow customer account value following the initial customer win. And this has been largely successful, as shown by the 12% growth in annual contract value of the top 100 customers over the last year. This represents a revenue per unit of about $70. Additionally, RealPage derives about 88% of their on-demand revenue from subscription agreements, which typically last about a year, and the average renewal rate for those relationships is 97%, which provides some really nice visibility into their top line, gives investors confidence going forward and what the revenues are going to look like. So based on their market positioning and attractive expansion strategy, it's recommended that the AIM Equity Fund adds this stock with a price target of $72 that represents about a 36% upside. So we'll move on to drivers. I'll note that this first driver was pulled together by Sean, so we'll have him answer questions on it, but I'll pitch it just for continuity purposes. So their ClickPay acquisition in April 2018, they acquired all of the outstanding shares of ClickPay for about $220 million. This is an electronic payment platform for resident units across multiple real estate segments, and it helps increase operational efficiency for property owners and expands RealPage's reach into the homeowner association owner-occupied real estate segment, which contains about 16 million units. And with this, their total addressable market should be expanded by about $1 billion. So secondly, their inorganic growth potential. So since 2002, they've acquired about 40 different companies, which diversifies their product offerings, improves sales and marketing efforts, and increases their customer base. In the last 3 years alone, they've acquired about 12 companies for an average $100 million. They indicate that they'll continue this strategy going forward as they see appropriate. But these acquisitions have contributed on average an inorganic revenue growth rate of 12% over the last 3 years. And so I modeled 6%. I didn't actually include this in what you're saying in the box, but just as kind of a test to see what would happen, I modeled 6% annually over the next 3 years for inorganic growth, and that would add about $400 million of incremental revenues. And so with $260 million cash on the balance sheet and a $350 million credit facility, this isn't only likely, but it's feasible as well. Lastly, their asset optimization growth. YieldStar and LRO are two of RealPage's top revenue management solutions within the asset optimization segment. And these products help property managers make decisions that directly impact asset yields, and management believes that net operating income could be 2 to 7% higher if customers use these solutions. So these products only penetrate about 14 and 10% of the applicable units respectively, leaving a large unaddressed market opportunity. And this asset optimization segment has the strongest gross margins at 74%. So increased focus on selling these products could definitely contribute to not only top line growth, but important margin expansion benefits as well. So just quick on the valuation. I know this is coming, so I'll get ahead of it. The WACC is pretty low. It's like 6.76. I used a 1.7% risk-free rate, which is what it was at when I modeled it. If I bump it up to 2.5%, which would probably make a lot of you happier, I get about, I think 8% upside on my DCF. So still upside even if I bump it up, but I just used what it was at the time. So I'll hand it over to Sean now.
Yeah, so with our first risk, we have third-party reliance. RealPage's products are hosted in data centers managed by third parties, and if these companies fail to effectively manage data volumes or lack secure services, this could potentially lead to further consequences. Our second driver is the economic outlook. RealPage serves in the rental real estate market, which in the case of an economic downturn could be adversely affected. And in the case of a recession, owner-operators have the potential to cut their technology spending, which would be a detriment to RP's operations. And our third risk is the reliance of acquisitions. A major part of RealPage's strategy is to acquire companies that increase their product portfolio and diversify their customer base. And at this point in the business cycle, it's possible that target companies will become too expensive and thus adversely affect the business. To conclude with our management, Stephen Wynn founded RealPage in 1998 and has been the CEO and chairman of the board ever since. He has been recognized by the National Apartment Association as a leader in the multifamily real estate industry. And Tom Ernst serves as the CFO with 20 years of experience in the software finance industry, including time with Goldman Sachs as a leading the software investment banking team and his own consulting firm, Tom Ernst Advisory, founded in 2023. With that, we'd like to open up the floor to questions.
Very good. Questions?
So with $261 million of cash on your balance sheet and $350 million of credit facility, what are your thoughts on the $580 million cash acquisition of Buildium that they announced 2 days ago?
In what? What do you mean? What are my thoughts on it? Just how will it affect the business? Or, okay. So yeah, Buildium is a big win for them in terms of expanding their business. So this is they offer property management solutions. They largely serve the SMB market, which RealPage feels is very under-penetrated. And it has about 50 million units in that space. And it also adds on to the ClickPay acquisition, expanding them into the HOA segment. And they feel that there's not a lot of overlap between the market that they currently serve and the SMB market in which Buildium mainly operates. And so there will be a lot of cross-selling opportunities. This is a really new acquisition. Obviously, it was just announced, so there's not a whole lot of guidance on it. But it adds about 2 million units, which boosts the amount of units that RealPage sells to currently. So that's about a 12% increase. And they estimate that it could add about 150 basis points to their organic growth number. And so, like I said, it adds on to the ClickPay acquisition, and I think that that's really important, as that's one of our drivers. Expanding that even further with this, I think is going to be really big. So obviously, this isn't even something that we knew was happening when we picked the company, and now that this has, I think the upside could be even greater.
Is it accretive?
Yeah.
Do you know by how much?
150 basis points to the revenue number.
David Krause has a question, and then Dr. Wall.
Yeah, you have a question from Dr. Krause. He says he feels that your biggest risk is your company's ability to integrate the various acquisitions into their existing firm. How comfortable are you that management can continue to succeed with this strategy?
So they've acquired 43 companies since 2002. So they have, and this is their CEO founded the company, so he's been around the entire time. So they have a lot of opportunity acquiring and integrating companies. This is a risk because, I mean, acquiring companies at any point is they're tough to integrate. But they've got a lot of experience doing so, and they've had about they average about 10% organic growth. So even if they were to have issues with their acquisition integration, I don't think it'll necessarily adversely affect the business too much.
Sure. Are you concerned about an economic downturn since they're in the housing space?
I am concerned about an economic downturn because I think in any business that there's a potential for an economic downturn to be a detriment to any business, like I said. But we also believe that, RP's clients include each of the top 10 largest multifamily property management companies, and its ability to grow is dependent on clients purchasing additional solutions. And as potentially in an economic downturn, real estate prices plummet. I think there's potential for property managers to be incentivized to further acquire additional real estate, therefore requiring additional solutions. So potentially driving our revenue.
Could one of you walk me through why you want, first off, is your EV to EBITDA adjusted, unadjusted? What, I keep reading the company's releases, they're adjusting earnings by like $1 every time.
Yeah, so unadjusted, I use a trailing 12 month.
Okay, so this is adjusted, now, is this GAAP, non-GAAP, what are we dealing with?
GAAP unadjusted, yeah.
Okay, so these are all GAAP unadjusted. You want me to pay 37 EV to EBITDA?
I do, yes.
Do you think that's reasonable?
I think
for
it's
a
reasonable.
company? Would you, let me reframe. Do you think buying, any other company, if I pitched you 37 would be a pretty normal number?
Well, yeah, I mean, their number's 29, so that's not much of a discount. So there's not a ton of room to go. I understand that that is a real outlier in terms of my valuation, which is why I only weighed it 10%.
Well, PE would have been the outlier, but you ignored that one.
Yeah, the PE, I don't like to value tech companies using PE.
I agree.
So I always kind of err on the side of EV to EBITDA and a sales multiple. So when you look at like CoStar and AppFolio, which are really their two closest competitors, 96 and 42 respectively. AppFolio I even left out because it's just so outside of what the other ones are at. So I think especially when you look at those, I think 37 times is definitely reasonable. Yeah. I guess that's a long-winded way of.
Okay. And then my last question for the Minty. Talk to me about ClickPay acquisition. How will it drive stock returns going forward?
Yeah, what was it?
I think you have an acquisition called ClickPay, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about how it'll drive stock returns going forward?
Yeah, so I think that ClickPay is, so you see that the acquisition of ClickPay, I don't think has been really realized yet, and will drive stock returns because consumers aren't really, like, the dominant methods for paying rent aren't really electronic yet, through electronic methods. The dominant methods are through cash, check, money orders. So I think that this acquisition is more of a future-looking acquisition.
Did you guys quantify it at all?
We did not. No, we only quantified the organic growth we already said.
I have a question. So they did $1.2 billion of acquisitions, if I read it. Doing an average, they did 12 in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Average 100 million, so 1.2 billion. What kind of earnings have been driving, or what kind of multiple they've been paying for these companies?
Okay, yeah.
Either EBITDA multiple or price of sales.
I want to say, I don't want to give you a number because I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll look into it. I did look at something on that, but I don't have it off the top of my head, so I don't want to. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, so this company relies a lot on data security too, I would imagine. And I read that in the past they've actually had to pay $3 million in charges for failing to secure tenant information. Are you at all worried about their data protection going forward?
They just added about 330 employees directly focused on that area of the business. So they're aware of it and they're focused on it. So I'm not worried about it going forward.
One question more.
Yeah, you have two from Dr. Kraus. He says their ESG rating is a B. Why is it so low?
Data security reasons.
And then his other one is 4% ROIC is pretty low. And he understands the operating leverage potential of his firm. So did you model out what ROIC will grow to by 2021?
Yeah. Let me get my notes on this. So since it's a very acquisition-focused company, the strategy is naturally very capital intensive. So let me just sit through this stuff. So I modeled out over the next, by 2022, we'll see ROIC go higher than the WACC. And so they just, they also just increased leverage in 2017 because I think at the time they were planning on ramping up acquisitions, which they did. Those 12 over the last 3 years. So they added leverage. They also increased the amount of equity that they have by issuing additional shares, which brought the ROIC down. But I think going forward, it's going to come back up by, like I said, 2022.
All right, I'm going to ask the last question.
Sure.
They just reported earnings.
They did.
Not well received by the street.
It was not.
So what happened?
Yes. So
What's going to change in your mind to these?
So I've been chirping on this a lot, but 12 acquisitions in the last 3 years is a lot. I think at some point you're going to see some integration issues, and that was relevant in this last quarter. There was also some issues with product ramping, but they only lowered their revenue guide by $6 million, and they kept their EPS estimates exactly the same. So to me, it seems like just more of like a 1 quarter headwind, and it should normalize going forward. They also just authorized 100 million share repurchases today, which should help stabilize it.
Imagine if you're trading at 37 times EBITDA, you'd be buying a lot of stock, a lot of stuff with that stock price. Okay. Last question. That's it for today. So thank you very much. Presenters and juniors, thank you very much. Very good.
Well,